Right. Let's talk inside the NBA. Over the summer, news broke that the NBA had inked a new media deal over the next 11 years. Games were set to be broadcast by longtime partner ESPN, the return of NBC Sports, and a new third partner in Amazon. One company was left curiously absent in the announcement: Warner Brothers Discovery. For the first time in 40 years, there will be no pro basketball on TNT. And you know what? Times are changing, cable's moving out, streaming and network are what's in. As more people cut the cord, ESPN and NBC offer a bigger audience than TNT. It's also pretty clear the league wanted to be partnered with Amazon for everything they can offer beyond broadcasting games. Still, the loss of TNT does mean one thing. It means saying goodbye to the most famous studio show in sports, Inside the NBA. For over a decade, Shaquille O'Neal, Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, and Charles Barkley have entertained us in ways no other sports show has. It's a sad sight for any fan. That is, if it weren't for recent news of a deal to share the show with ESPN once the new deal kicks in. The crew will take over for ESPN's current studio offering, the much maligned NBA Countdown. This is great. We get to keep a show we love and ditch one we hate. Still, there are questions in the air, and not just about whether the deal will actually go through, more on that later. I mean, why is Inside such an aberration? We all know they have the best host in the business and a trio of analysts that give us great moments all season long, but does it go deeper than that? Every year we get a new cast for Countdown, we get new announcers on ESPN. Meanwhile, Inside has stayed steady for years. Why did ESPN have to pony up for somebody else's halftime show? Why can't they create their own? Is it possible to replicate TNT's winning formula? In short, why does Inside the NBA work? Let's find out. I think you can boil down the success of Inside to two factors. The show works because of time and trust. Let's tackle time first. This is coming from an analysis by Brian Curtis of The Ringer tackling the same issue. In his article on Countdown's coverage of the 2021 NBA Finals, he found that the average analyst had less than 10 seconds to discuss their point. Each analyst took turns delivering a micro point before quickly handing off to the next person. The segment was over before it started so that more time could be dedicated to ads. It makes perfect sense that the show is called Countdown. They're always in a rush. The segment may as well be scripted for how fake it feels. Contrast that with Inside. There, the guys have time to make points, Ernie keeps the order, Shaq and Charles clash, Kenny runs to the board, they wrap it up, and they head back to the game. The ads don't interrupt the show. They give each guy the proper time to make his point and trust that the time will be used well. Speaking of, that brings up the second key to Inside: trust. The producers of Countdown haven't built it to succeed. They've built it to not fail, and there's a difference. They give their analysts no time to speak, not just so that they have more time to sell ads, but also so that things don't fly off the rails. Everyone has to speak the same amount of time, nobody can stand out, because doing either minimizes the brand and empowers the individual. They've overvalued the slick transition from host to analyst to highlight to wrap up that most viewers don't actually care about. Back over with Inside the NBA, there's real trust there. Not only because they have a capable, experienced team in front of and behind the camera, but because the producers know the show works best off script. When the guys clash, when Shaq starts talking about Chuck having no rings, it's not a sign of crisis. That means they're cooking. The best conversations are organic and have room to develop, something that ESPN's format just can't do. To be clear, I don't want to make it seem like putting on a good studio show is easy. The people in charge answer to bigger bosses than me and have a tough job to do. The business has changed a lot over the past few years. In the past, you received feedback from a small circle of trusted pros and producers. Now you have to contend with millions of social media users playing armchair producer. The show has to impress the league, the broadcaster, the advertisers, the audience, and all of them have competing interests. And look, most of the other studio shows for other sports are nothing to write home about. They're all over scripted, they carry too many ads, and they don't give their talent room to be talented. Still, I don't want to make it seem like this is impossible or that Inside is only good because they've had the same crew for years. It certainly helps, but that's not all of it. We can still make great studio shows. In fact, we already have. Over in the world of football, the CBS Champions League broadcast has drawn praise for its similarity to Inside the NBA. It features a less serious broadcast team of Kate Scott, Thierry Henry, Jamie Carragher, and Micah Richards that has made the Champions League a joy to watch for us Americans. They have time to make their points and are trusted to steer the ship themselves. There's no need for a barrage of highlights and branded segments to carry the show. The show carries itself. They get to have fun, something that feels foreign on most English football shows, if I'm being honest. Bottom line, CBS took what worked about Inside, added in quality talent from the world of football, and created a hit show. And that's why I'm worried about ESPN's takeover of Inside. Over the last few years, it seems like their strategy has been to hoover up big-name talent and then just throw them on a big show without realizing why that talent worked in the first place. That's how you get Stephen A. bombing at UFC 246. That's how you get the decline of First Take. If we start to see ESPN personalities popping in, it'll be a troubling sign. This is a group that works as is, now with forcing in ESPN's latest hot take artist to deliver a 20-second rip for TikTok. If you take anything away from this video, it's this. The show we love will still exist because of the talented people working behind and in front of the camera. Even as the industry changes, those type of shows are still possible, but only when they're done right. The modern day ESPN isn't capable of doing that. No amount of Bob Iger's money can fix their style of production. It shouldn't be that way. They've all the money and all the talent in the world. The only thing stopping ESPN from creating the best studio show in the world is ESPN. That's why they had to buy somebody else's.